If you hold the belief that kindness is an all-encompassing force for good, you are mostly right. Kindness nurtures connections, cultivates trust, and allows relationships to blossom. But what transpires when you offer kindness to someone who twists it into a weapon? When you engage with a narcissist, your goodwill does not foster warmth. It morphs into a tool for their manipulation, a lever they pull to control, extract, and dominate. It's not a pathway to mutual understanding. It's a chink in your armor that they exploit without a second thought. The core issue lies in the fact that narcissists do not perceive kindness as a virtue. They interpret it as a sign of submission. To them, being nice equates to being weak. This stems from their existence in a psychological realm where most people cherish reciprocity, respect, and fairness. Narcissists, however, are fixated solely on power dynamics: who prevails, who falters, who wields control. These are the grim questions that dictate their interactions. So when you attempt to kill them with kindness, you are inadvertently fortifying their behavior. You teach them that they can manipulate you, that they can mistreat you, disregard your needs, and still receive warmth and understanding in return. Why wouldn't they continue to exploit that? From their twisted perspective, you are merely rewarding their cruelty. This is where many become ensnared in a web of confusion. They ponder, if I cease being nice, doesn't that make me just as vile as they are? No, it does not. Embrace the darkness of truth. Kindness can become a curse in the hands of the malevolent. Choosing not to be taken advantage of is not an act of cruelty. Asserting your own worth is not a sign of selfishness. There is a painful distinction between being unnecessarily aggressive and simply refusing to be trampled upon. What I'm trying to convey is a shift in perspective, where kindness is seen as a choice rather than a burden. When your kindness is weaponized against you, it ceases to be kindness. It becomes a form of self-destruction. The psychological dynamics at play are both simple and deeply unsettling. Narcissists thrive on validation, attention, and control. When you extend kindness to them, even in the face of their abusive or manipulative actions, you inadvertently bolster their sense of superiority. They interpret your compliance as a testament to their power. They push, they twist, they demand, and with each concession you make, they grow more formidable. So what can you do instead? You must redefine what it means to be strong. True strength isn't about being rude or confrontational for its own sake. It's about having the courage to act with integrity, even when it feels impossible. It's about discerning when kindness is warranted, and when it's merely an invitation for further harm. This involves establishing boundaries and adhering to them. It means learning to say no without feeling the need to explain yourself. It means stepping away from their manipulative games, refusing to be drawn into arguments or guilted into submission. It means understanding that their anger, disappointment, or disapproval is not yours to bear. In this struggle, the weight of your choices can feel heavy, and the path to self-respect may seem lonely. It also means recognizing that sometimes disengagement is the only way forward. If a narcissist feeds off your compassion, the most impactful choice you can make is to withhold it. This isn't about being unkind. It's about refusing to engage in a relationship that is meant to drain you. It's about stepping away from a toxic cycle. Initially, the narcissist will resist your withdrawal. They will push back, testing your resolve, perhaps trying to guilt you, lash out, or even pretend to feel remorse in a desperate bid to draw you back in. But if you stand firm, if you refuse to be swayed, if you stop offering the same endless forgiveness and blind kindness, they lose their grip on you. And therein lies the truth. It's about power, not the power to control others, but the power to reclaim your own life. When you understand that kindness is a tool to be wielded wisely, rather than a blanket obligation, you regain your agency. You cease to be a passive victim of your own suffering and begin to take charge of your existence. So the real question isn't whether you should be kind. It's about determining who truly deserves your kindness. If kindness is truly a virtue, it should be bestowed upon those who recognize its value, not on those who exploit it, who will turn it against you, or who misinterpret it as a sign of weakness. If your kindness only serves to empower a narcissist, it's time to withdraw it. Instead, focus that energy on nurturing yourself, on fortifying your own spirit. Ultimately, the person who deserves your kindness the most is you. When you find yourself dealing with a narcissist, it's crucial to grasp the nature of the game you're caught in, for to them, it is merely a game. If you fail to see this, you will continue to suffer losses. Narcissists have no interest in fairness, mutual respect, or authentic human connection. They function on a different psychological plane, one that values power, control, and self-promotion above all else. Their relationships are not built on the foundations of healthy interaction. Instead, they are transactional, where every exchange is a matter of winning or losing. So when you approach them with kindness, hoping that your compassion will somehow touch their hearts or inspire change, you are making a grave error. To a narcissist, kindness is not a benevolent act. It is a vulnerability to be taken advantage of. It signals to them that you are malleable, that they can manipulate you, that they can overstep your boundaries without fear of repercussions. In the end, it's a lonely realization that your kindness, meant to uplift, can instead lead to your own heartache. Once they become aware of this, they will begin to test you, initially in subtle ways, perhaps through minor manipulations, neglecting your needs, dismissing your worries, or playing the victim when you assert yourself. If you allow these behaviors to go unchecked in the name of kindness, you are reinforcing their belief that they can take advantage of you without facing any consequences. This is where individuals often find themselves trapped. Once a narcissist realizes that you will consistently choose harmony over confrontation, they will exploit that. They will provoke you, knowing you will retreat. They will guilt-trip you, aware that you will comfort them. They will mistreat you, confident that you will excuse their actions. Each time you acquiesce, you are rewarding the very behavior that is detrimental to you. Now, let's consider this from a psychological perspective. What occurs when a behavior is rewarded repeatedly? It becomes stronger and more habitual. If a child learns that throwing a tantrum gets them what they want, they will continue to use that strategy. The same concept applies to narcissists. If you respond with kindness and compliance every time they manipulate you, they learn that manipulation is effective, since they lack any intrinsic motivation to change and do not value fairness or mutual respect. They will persist in using the tactics that yield their desired outcomes. Due to their lack of intrinsic motivation to change and their indifference to fairness or mutual respect, they will persist in using the strategies that yield the results they desire. This is why being kind to a narcissist does not improve their behavior. In fact, it exacerbates it. It strengthens their conviction that they deserve special treatment and can act however they wish without facing repercussions. Once this mindset becomes entrenched, their actions intensify. What begins as minor manipulation can escalate into overt control. Subtle guilt-tripping can evolve into severe gaslighting. What may appear as harmless self-absorption can develop into a complete disregard for your well-being. It's important to understand that this is not unintentional. Narcissists are aware of the pain they inflict. They simply do not care. Even worse, they may view your suffering as a testament to their power. For them, power is paramount. They do not pursue relationships founded on love and respect. Instead, they seek those based on dominance and validation. The more you give, the more they demand. The more you accommodate, the more they push boundaries. So, what should you do instead? You need to change your approach from avoiding conflict to establishing boundaries. It's essential to understand that kindness is not an endless resource to be freely given. It should be offered where it is appreciated and reciprocated. In dealings with a narcissist, kindness must be conditional, based on respect and fair treatment. This means that when they attempt to ensnare you with guilt, you refuse to justify your existence. When they seek to provoke you, you remain unyielding. When they dare to breach your boundaries, you stand resolute. And yes, they will fight back. They will escalate their tactics. For when you cease to reward their malevolence, their desperation grows. But if you maintain your resolve, if you refuse to play their twisted game, they will lose their grip on you. Here lies a darker truth. The instant you stop craving validation from a narcissist, their power over you begins to wither. They thrive on your need for their approval. They crave your dependence on their acceptance. The moment you sever that bond, they are left powerless. So, do not confuse kindness with submission. Do not mistake patience for weakness. Your worth is not measured by how much torment you can withstand. If a narcissist only responds to your kindness by demanding more, then you owe them nothing. The instant you grasp this, the moment you redirect your compassion towards those who truly value it, is the moment you shatter your chains. When confronting a narcissist, remember that their entire psychological facade is built on a grotesque lie that they are superior, infallible, and deserving of special treatment. They maintain this illusion by warping the reality around them, manipulating others into sustaining their delusion. This is where most souls become ensnared, lost in the shadows of their deceit. If you are a good person with a conscience, you naturally respond to others with empathy. You strive to understand them and seek to resolve conflicts through patience, compromise, and kindness. In most situations, this is the appropriate way to approach a healthy relationship, as kindness nurtures connection. However, with a narcissist, kindness does not foster connection. Instead, it leads to control. Narcissists function on a different psychological plane. They do not relate to others like emotionally mature individuals do, and do not see relationships as opportunities for mutual growth. Rather, they perceive them as arenas for power struggles. The moment you interact with them believing they desire a fair resolution, you have already lost, as their goal is not fairness but dominance, and they excel at achieving it. Narcissists constantly test those around them, searching for vulnerabilities and emotional triggers to elicit the reactions they desire. If you take pride in being kind and accommodating, they view that as an advantage. They understand that by pushing your buttons, guilt-tripping you, playing the victim, or accusing you of unkindness, you will instinctively try to comfort them. By doing this, you fall directly into their trap, because as soon as you take on their emotions as your responsibility, they gain control over you. The instant they can make you doubt yourself, asking questions like, "Am I being unfair? Am I being unkind?" they have succeeded. While you are caught in self-doubt trying to rationalize your actions, they are solidifying their stance. They are establishing the rules, and those rules will never work in your favor. This is why engaging in endless debates with a narcissist is futile. You will never achieve the victory you envision. They do not argue in good faith. They disregard logic, truth, and fairness. Their focus is on winning, and they will manipulate reality in any way necessary to portray you as the villain, and themselves as the victim. If you find yourself defending and explaining your actions repeatedly, you are giving them exactly what they desire: your emotional investment, your energy, and your submission. So what should you do instead? You need to stop participating in the game. Cease providing them with the emotional energy they require to maintain control. Stop trying to explain yourself to someone who has no interest in understanding. Instead, establish clear boundaries and uphold them, not through discussion or justification, but through your actions. This means that when they attempt to provoke you into an argument, you do not engage. When they accuse you of being unkind, you do not rush to defend yourself. When they ask for a reason why you won't accept their behavior, you don't offer one. Instead, you take action. You disengage from the conversation. You deny them the response they seek, and remain resolute in your choice. Indeed, they will resist. They will escalate their efforts, because when you strip a narcissist of their control, they become anxious. They will employ every tactic at their disposal to draw you back in anger, guilt, threats, and pity. However, if you remain steadfast and refuse to be manipulated, they will lose their grip on you. The crucial realization is that you do not owe a narcissist an explanation. You are not obligated to expend your emotional energy on them. You do not owe them kindness when they have repeatedly shown that they will only exploit it. What you owe is to yourself, to safeguard your own well-being, and to avoid engaging in a relationship that is inherently exploitative. Once you accept this, and once you stop expecting fairness from someone who does not value it, you reclaim your power. The most effective stance you can take with a narcissist is indifference. The instant you cease reacting, stop explaining, and no longer attempt to make them comprehend, they lose their control and you regain yours. A significant error people often make when interacting with a narcissist is believing that their kindness, patience, or logical reasoning will eventually penetrate the narcissist's facade. They think that if they communicate things in the right manner or endure just a bit longer, the narcissist will come to understand their perspective. However, this is a false hope that keeps individuals ensnared in cycles of emotional manipulation. It's crucial to recognize that narcissists do not share the same moral compass as you do. They do not view kindness as something to be returned. Instead, they see it as an opportunity for exploitation. They interpret your patience as consent, perceive forgiveness as a sign of weakness, and regard your attempts to reason with them as evidence that they still hold power over you. The situation becomes even more perilous when a narcissist senses that you are beginning to see through their facade and recognize their manipulation. Rather than retreating, they alter their approach. They may adopt the persona of a vulnerable narcissist, which is one of their most deceptive strategies. At this point, they start to play the victim, sharing tales of their difficult past, expressing deep emotional pain, and claiming that their behavior stems from previous traumas. If you possess a compassionate heart an attribute that likely explains why you've endured their presence for so long. You may find yourself gripped by an insatiable desire to help them. But beware, for this is yet another form of manipulation, a sinister strategy designed to keep you ensnared in their dark orbit. As long as you perceive them as a tormented soul in desperate need of salvation, you will remain tethered to them. You will linger, you will suffer, you will tirelessly attempt to mend their fractured spirit, all the while surrendering your own autonomy. Narcissists are adept at wielding empathy as a weapon. They understand that kind-hearted individuals yearn for redemption and transformation. They know that by revealing just a hint of vulnerability, by allowing their facade to crack for a fleeting moment, they can reel you back into their web, and once they have you ensnared again, the cycle of torment resumes. The justifications begin to accumulate. I never meant to hurt you. My trust issues are to blame. Or my past has shaped me this way. Before you realize it, your focus shifts from the pain they inflict to the misguided mission of aiding them in overcoming their demons. But let's face the grim truth. It is not your duty to rescue them. More crucially, you cannot. Genuine change demands that an individual confront their own darkness, accept responsibility for their actions, and engage in the arduous, often excruciating journey of true psychological growth. A narcissist, by their very nature, will never concede. Why? Because to do so would mean dismantling the fragile facade they've constructed. The facade that proclaims, "I am infallible, I am above all, I deserve everything." They will claw and scrape to defend this illusion, even if it means dragging those around them into the abyss. It demands the destruction of the very identity they cling to, the identity that insists, "I am never wrong, I am superior, I am entitled." They will fight with a ferocity that chills the soul to protect this self-image, even if it means leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. So, what can you do instead? You must accept that their torment is not yours to mend. You must abandon the delusion that with enough love, with enough endurance, they will miraculously transform into someone else. Yes, this is a daunting task. It forces you to confront the dark corners of your own beliefs about loyalty, compassion, and what it truly means to be a good person. It compels you to question, am I being kind, or am I merely a pawn in their twisted game? Am I truly helping, or merely enabling? This is the unsettling transformation in perspective that must occur. Once you cease to view them as a fragile spirit in desperate need of salvation, and instead recognize them for what they really are, masters of manipulation, reveling in control and deceit, ensnaring you in their emotional web, you can finally escape their grasp. In that moment of liberation, you reclaim something far more precious than any facade of a relationship: your identity, your vitality, your tranquility, and your capacity to connect with those who genuinely value and respect you. The instant you stop granting them the benefit of the doubt, the moment you cease to justify their toxic behavior, and when you finally perceive the insidious pattern for what it is, you strip them of their power and reclaim your own. One of the most harrowing truths when confronting a narcissist is realizing that their perception of relationships is a twisted reflection of your own. For them, connections are devoid of mutual respect, support, or authentic love. They are merely arenas for dominance, control, and the relentless extraction of validation, power, and emotional energy from you, all while offering the bare minimum, just enough to keep you ensnared in their dark game. This realization is a bitter pill to swallow, especially for those who have invested months, years, or even decades in a futile attempt to maintain a semblance of a functional relationship with a narcissist. You cling to the hope that if you articulate your feelings clearly enough, if you show them patience, if you refrain from provoking them, they might eventually meet you halfway. Yet, that moment never arrives. To a narcissist, compromise feels like defeat. It threatens the fragile facade they've built around their self-image of superiority, of always being right, and of deserving total submission from those around them. What's even more heartbreaking is that when they sense you're beginning to see through their manipulations, they don't relent, they merely evolve. If overt dominance and intimidation cease to work, they resort to passive aggression, guilt-tripping, or adopting the role of the victim. If you attempt to distance yourself, they may suddenly inundate you with affection, grand promises of change, and declarations of how much they need you. But don't be fooled. This isn't true remorse. It's a calculated tactic. It's a desperate attempt to reel you back in so the cycle of manipulation can persist. If you genuinely wish to reclaim your power, if you truly want to stop being a source of nourishment for their ego, you must completely withdraw from their game. You need to understand that engaging with them on their terms, whether through arguments, justifications, or attempts to hold them accountable, is precisely what they desire. Because as long as you remain engaged, as long as you react, and as long as you invest emotionally, they maintain their grip on you. So, what can you do instead? You begin to detach, not just in body, but in mind, heart, and spirit. This isn't mere avoidance. It's a painful, intentional choice to step away from their web of manipulation. For those who are naturally empathetic, this is an agonizing struggle, as every fiber of your being will urge you to react when they provoke you. You'll feel the desperate need to defend yourself against their unfounded accusations, to explain your side in hopes of being understood, to seek some semblance of closure. Yet, that's the cruel illusion, for closure is a mirage when dealing with a narcissist. There will never be a moment where they acknowledge their wrongs and vow to change. They aren't after truth. They crave control. Thus, the most empowering act you can take is to refuse to engage. You stop explaining, stop justifying, stop allowing them access to your feelings, and stop feeding their ego with your reactions. This is far from easy, and it will likely provoke fierce resistance from them. They will escalate, pushing every button they know you have, wielding guilt, shame, and anger, anything to make you falter, because they understand that as long as they can elicit a response from you, they maintain their grip. But if you stand firm, if you resist being pulled back into their psychological turmoil, something profound occurs. They begin to lose interest. It's a bittersweet realization, knowing that your silence is what ultimately drives them away. Narcissists do not flourish in situations where they cannot draw emotional energy. They struggle in relationships where they cannot control the narrative. When you cease to react, you become uninteresting to them, and in that moment, you regain something they have been draining from you for too long: your autonomy. This is what true power embodies, not the capacity to dominate or manipulate, but the strength to remain steadfast in your own reality, free from their distortions. It means being able to assert, "I do not require your approval. I have nothing to prove to you, and I will not allow you to dictate my emotional state." When you reach that stage, when you completely disengage from their game, you not only regain control of the relationship, you also reclaim control over yourself. This is something no narcissist can genuinely withstand. A vital realization when dealing with a narcissist is this: you cannot save them, you cannot fix them, and most importantly, it is not your duty to do so. This can be a challenging truth for many, especially those who are inherently compassionate. If you are someone who believes in the power of understanding, the potential for redemption, and that patience and kindness can change even the most damaged individuals, then this realization may feel like a betrayal of your core values. But that is exactly the issue. Narcissists take advantage of those values. They flourish on the notion that if you love them enough and make enough sacrifices, they will eventually change. However, that moment never arrives, and the reason is straightforward. Narcissists do not view themselves as individuals who need to change. They perceive the issue as always being external. It's always you, the world, or someone else who fails to provide them with the respect, admiration, and submission they feel entitled to. Consequently, the more you attempt to assist them, the more you reinforce their illusion. The more you explain, the more they distort your words. The more you forgive, the more they test your limits. The more you try to hold them accountable, the more they find ways to shift the blame back onto you. This isn't a misunderstanding or communication issue. It's a fundamental difference in perspective. You operate under the principles of reason, empathy, and personal growth, while they adhere to the principles of power, control, and self-preservation. Once you grasp this, the only sensible course of action becomes evident. You cease engagement. You stop believing that your kindness will penetrate their defenses. You stop thinking that if you just find the right words, show enough patience, or prove your loyalty, they will finally recognize your worthiness for genuine care, because they want. The true question isn't, how can I change a narcissist? But rather, why am I even trying? Why do I invest my energy in someone who won't meet me halfway? Why do I allow myself to be drained, belittled, and disrespected, clinging to the hope that one day they might choose to treat me differently? The harsh reality is that they won't. The longer I wait for that elusive moment, the more of myself I risk losing. Some might argue that it's cruel to give up on someone, but I believe the real cruelty lies in permitting someone to continue hurting you simply because you're too afraid to leave. It's cruel to enable their dysfunction by remaining in the cycle. It's heartbreaking to sacrifice your own well-being in the vain hope that they will one day appreciate what they have consistently shown they do not. Walking away isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-respect, something a narcissist will never offer you. You must find it within yourself. And here's the painful irony: when you finally stop trying to fix them, when you let go of the illusion that your love can change them, you reclaim something far more precious, your own clarity. You begin to realize, perhaps for the first time, the depths of your own sacrifices, the countless needs you buried deep within, and the relentless emotional fatigue that has consumed you as you navigated the treacherous labyrinth of their forced manipulation. When you finally step away from that darkness, when you reclaim your energy, your time, your peace of mind, something hauntingly profound occurs. You cease to seek validation from a source that was never capable of providing it. You break free from the twisted distortions that have shaped your reality. You shed the oppressive weight of their expectations and begin to construct a life that is authentically yours. But beware, the grip of a narcissist is not easily loosened. They will unleash a torrent of tactics to ensnare you once more: fury, guilt, charm, desperation. They will weave promises and threats, sowing seeds of doubt within your mind. Yet, if you stand firm, if you resist their pull back into their sinister web, a powerful transformation occurs. You become unshackled, and freedom is a concept that a narcissist cannot abide, for they cannot thrive in a realm devoid of control. When you reclaim that control, when you finally declare enough is enough, you do not merely walk away from them, you return to the shadows of your own self, and that, in the end, is the true triumph.